everybody, and welcome back to my studio. We're ready to go on to the second part, which is to actually apply the faux enamel. And I have the embossing powder mix that I made earlier, and I've just got a dry paintbrush, and I'm going to take that, pick up a little bit of this, and start applying it to each one of these petals. Now try to be a little bit careful. You're going to get some of the embossing powder where you don't want it, so don't fret over it, but try to keep it pretty much on the petal as best you can. And we'll just go ahead and apply that to each one of these. You don't want to apply it too heavily because you want a little bit of a speckled look. Go ahead and apply to each one of these. The raw clay is actually going to bond with the enamel, with this embossing powder, and we're going to cure it in the oven to get the embossed look. Good. I'm just going to brush off that brush a little bit, and then I'm going to go around and just take off as best I can, any of the powder that might have strayed where I didn't want it to. Taking particular care around the button, unless you want embossing powder on there. And I'm just going to take off as much of that as I can to clean it up just a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, so we've got our embossing powder applied, and that's what's going to create the faux enamel look. I'm going to take this off of the card, and I have an old vase here, just a glass vase that I use, and it's got a little bit of a slight curve, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on that glass, and it's going to stick. I'll just press it down a little bit so it'll stick, and that's going to give it a little bit of a bracelet curve. Now if you don't have a glass vase, you can certainly just do this flat, and it'll come out just fine. So we've got the embossing powder applied. We'll go ahead and get this into the oven based on the manufacturer's instructions, and I will cure this for about an hour. Let me just clean up anything else. All right, we'll get that into the oven and we'll come back and take a look when it's finished. Okay, the piece is out of the oven, and you can see that I do have some of the embossing powder where I don't necessarily want it, so I want to clean this up just a little bit. So I'm going to take a little bit of the burnt umber paint and just put a little bit on my palette here. And I have a very, very fine tipped paintbrush that I'm going to use. And I'm going to kind of apply this here just to kind of clean up and cover up some of that embossing powder. And I'll just go around where I see I've got a little extra. Embossing powder, and I can just keep doing that till I feel like I've got it cleaned up the way I'd like it to be. It won't cover everything, but it will serve to tidy it up a little bit. I want to kind of keep the paint off the button, so I'll go back and make sure I don't have too much ending up on that button. And this will give it a nice patina also. Okay. Use my finger to take off any excess. All right. And I've cleaned that up, I think, to the degree that I need to. A little bit on the button there. All right. I'm going to go ahead now, and while that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and apply the backing. We do need a backing on this because we need to cover up and secure this anchor that we put in. So I'm going to take a little bit of the Genesis medium, and apply that to the back. And I've already cut out a textured sheet. This is on the number 2 setting. And I'm just going to apply that, make sure I don't have any air trapped. Let's give that a good, make sure that's down really securely. I'll take my blade and I'll cut around just to bevel this edge and make it look a little bit nicer. And once I've finished beveling, I'll take my texture sheet and I'll just retexture that edge. Now you'll notice that I covered up the hole that I had put in the front, and that's okay. I'm going to just open that up after the fact. Okay, so I've got the back on, and that's looking good. Now I'm going to go ahead and cure this. I'm actually going to do one more thing before I cure it. Let me go ahead and get the Varathane. That paint dries really fast, so that should be pretty dry. I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit of the Varathane. This is just a gloss Varathane, and I'll have the instructions or the type that it is in the instructions on the blog. And I'm going to go ahead and coat this lightly. It'll look a little bit milky as it goes on, but it'll dry clear. I want to make sure that I really cover the petals, because the embossing powder won't stand up. Make sure I've got the edge covered. The embossing powder won't hold up if it's not sealed. Okay, so I've got that sealed. And I'm going to go ahead and put this back on the base that I used earlier. Now this time I've covered it with a little bit of paper, and that's because I don't want the back side to be shiny, but I want to maintain the curve. So I'm going to go ahead and put this aside. I'm going to let the Varathane dry, and then I'm going to get that into the oven at the manufacturer's recommended temperature, and I'll cure this for another 30 minutes. As soon as it's done curing, we'll come back and we'll finish this up. Okay, I'm back, and the piece is cooled, and you can see how nice that finish looks from the Varathane. I've gone ahead and taken the bracelet piece that I had, and I've actually taken a little bit of apart, and I've taken one of the rings, and I've just put it through this side here and attached the lobster claw. And then I'm going to go around to the other side and attach that piece. And this is really pretty straightforward. Just put that through. Grab a pair of pliers. The other side. And I'll just twist that closed. These are pretty heavy duty, so okay. And there you have the finished piece. And I think it looks great. Very simple jewelry making technique here. Just adding a couple of jump rings. So I think that looks terrific. I hope you've enjoyed this project. I've really enjoyed sharing it with you. I really like the way the faux enameling looks, and I'm going to be trying that on some other projects. So I hope you're able to give it a try. I want to thank you for watching this video. Please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, leave me a comment. Really look forward to hearing from you. Thanks again for joining me in my studio. Take care.